It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10. Our top stories. After fears of an escalating conflict between India and Pakistan, the two sides agreed to a US-led ceasefire. But there are reports tonight of explosions in Indian Kashmir as both sides accuse the other of violations. Also ahead. European leaders, including Sir Keir Starmer, threaten Vladimir Putin with fresh sanctions if Russia fails to comply with an unconditional 30-day ceasefire.
Today feels like we've got one step closer to a ceasefire, which is desperately needed.
Police investigate an alleged attack on a prison officer by the Southport killer Axel Rudikubana. Plus,
what happens in this port doesn't stay in this port. The impact of Trump's tariffs are about to be felt across this country.
How Donald Trump's trade war with China is beginning to have a big impact on ports in California. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in the press preview from 10:30. Hello there, a very good evening. After days of rising tensions between India and Pakistan, there was a surprise announcement today of a full and immediate ceasefire led by the United States. Despite that, there have been reports of explosions in India-administered Kashmir, with both sides accusing the other of violating the truce. Tonight, Pakistan said it was committed to the ceasefire. Well, the Kashmir region is disputed territory separated by what's known as the line of control. After the attack on tourists on the 22nd of April, India accused Pakistan of sponsoring those behind the incident, which Pakistan has denied, triggering the crisis. On Tuesday, India fired missiles at 9 locations inside Pakistan. India said it was targeting terrorist infrastructure. Pakistan, in turn, said it had shot down a number of Indian aircraft, and there were multiple fatalities on both sides of the line of control. Well, overnight, Pakistan launched strikes on dozens of air bases and military sites across northern India using long-range weapons and drones. Explosions were heard in Amritsar in Punjab and Srinagar and Jammu in Indian Kashmir. Pakistan has said India fired missiles at 3 Pakistani air bases. From Pakistan, our Asia correspondent Cordelia Lynch sent this report.
The day started with a moment of intense jeopardy. Two foes on the cusp of all-out conflict and the sharpest escalation in tensions yet. But it ended with the promise of a ceasefire announced by the US President Donald Trump on Truth Social. After a long night of talks mediated by the United States, he said, "I'm pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. Congratulations to both countries on using common sense and great intelligence. Thank you for your attention to this matter." The world has watched on as two enemies spent days engaging in tit-for-tat warfare. Damage inflicted on both sides of the border. But they've chosen to step back from a collision course that could have spiralled into a fourth war. Addressing his nation tonight, Pakistan's Prime Minister rallied the country.
This is a success for our army and the nation. This is victory, and we are very thankful.
America is claiming a pivotal role in this truce. Whatever got these two nuclear neighbours here, it is the off-ramp so many were hoping for. Mohammed Aslam has been here before. The 76-year-old has lived through 2 wars here on the border with India in Punjab province. I know where all the bunkers are, he tells me. He used to carry weapons for the military. Before news of a peace deal broke, he was upbeat but defiant.
Do you think there's any way Pakistan wins this moment? And if so, what does victory look like?
I believe there won't be a war, but if there is, Pakistan will win. Muslims never lose. We always win. We don't fight with power. We fight with faith.
The early morning missiles and chest-thumping rhetoric had many here expecting more was to come.
Historically, this border town of Badapur acted as a first line of defence for Pakistan. India is just 5 kilometres away behind me. But the conflict looks different now. It's being fought from the air, not the ground. And India and Pakistan have walked into troubling new territory.
It is territory they found a way out of, both casting the ceasefire as a victory. But just hours after they celebrated, came reports of more skirmishes.
For the last few hours, there have been repeated violations of the understanding arrived at earlier this evening between the Directors General of Military Operations of India and Pakistan. This is a breach of the understanding arrived at earlier today.
A sign this truce is fragile and could yet collapse. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Badapur, Pakistan.
Let's bring in our US correspondent, James Matthews, who's in Washington for us this evening. So, James, Donald Trump taking credit for this truce.
Yes, and was very quick to announce it. Citizen journalist Donald Trump overnight posting on Truth Social, breaking the news of this ceasefire. I have to say, Jonathan, earlier in the week, he did a good impression of a president with more pressing matters on his plate. He was asked about the spike in hostilities between India and Pakistan, and he called it a shame. I hope they get it sorted out very quickly. There's no doubt that American involvement ramped up over the course of the week. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, and the Vice President, J.D. Vance, they have been working the phones, we are told, over the past 48 hours with both sides. So, yeah, sure, certainly there has been American involvement, but very much in tandem with other countries, Gulf countries amongst them, with a stake in a resolution. For Donald Trump, the man who would style himself as deal maker and peacemaker in chief, you can see why he wants to claim credit for what would appear to be a ceasefire, albeit a shaky one, which might yet test his diplomatic agility. But America, an important player, financially, apart from anything else, for both sides. India in trade talks on tariffs and trade deals and so on. Pakistan has been at the IMF this week looking for a $1 billion loan. America, a loud, serious voice in that regard. So, you know, for this transactional president, there is transaction at the heart of it. Although at the end of today, Jonathan, it's still an open question as to just how much influence Donald Trump did have on this ceasefire.
OK, James in Washington, thank you. European leaders, including Sir Keir Starmer, have threatened Vladimir Putin with fresh sanctions if Russia fails to comply with an unconditional 30-day ceasefire. The Prime Minister met the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv alongside the leaders of France, Germany and Poland. This evening, the Kremlin said it was considering the ceasefire proposal. From Kyiv, our international affairs editor Dominic Waghorn reports.
It is now a well-travelled road, but today the leaders of not just Britain and France, but Poland and Germany were here together in Kyiv. All four coming here by train on an unprecedented mission to show solidarity with Ukraine and put united pressure on Vladimir Putin to accept a 30-day ceasefire, which, as Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky was at pains to point out, is something everyone else is now calling for.
Ukraine is ready to move toward peace quickly and constructively. We accept the American proposal for a full and unconditional ceasefire. In fact, we ourselves are proposing it. Russia, as of now, is rejecting even that, even a ceasefire. And if they refuse something as basic as that, it means they don't want to end the war at all.
The meeting was partly a riposte to this. Vladimir Putin's gathering of more than 20 leaders in Moscow this week for Russian World War II events. In Kyiv, the 5 leaders were joined by others on video link or phone, including, crucially, US President Donald Trump. Britain's Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said this was the moment of truth for Russia's leader.
And so all of us here, together with the US are calling Putin out. If he's serious about peace, then he has a chance to show it now by extending the VE-Day pause into a full, unconditional 30-day ceasefire.
Just 4 days into his new job, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz was hinting at more robust German support for Kyiv, something that may cause concern in the Kremlin.
Es muss klar sein, wenn Russland sich diesem
It needs to be clear. If Russia denies this ceasefire, that would be the basis of negotiations that could start immediately. We will continue to defend Ukraine and we will continue to ratchet up pressure on Russia.
In Moscow, Russian officials were quick to dismiss the Allies' initiative. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said there was no point in trying to scare Russia with sanctions. But this meeting has put more pressure on Putin than ever before to suspend hostilities.
After all the claims of Western unity being made here and the vague threats of more sanctions, all eyes are on the most important member of the Western alliance, who of course isn't here. President Trump says he now supports the idea of a 30-day ceasefire, but he's put no pressure on Vladimir Putin to comply. Is that about to change?
Whether or not a ceasefire is agreed, this is as much about persuading Donald Trump he must finally act to force Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table and work towards ending this war. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News in Kyiv.
Back here, and police are investigating an attack on an officer at Belmarsh prison, allegedly committed by the Southport murderer Axel Rudikabana. The 18-year-old was jailed for a minimum of 52 years back in January. Emma Birchley reports.
There's not a single UK jail with tighter security than Belmarsh, yet behind its towering walls, an alleged attack on a prison officer using boiling water by this man, Axel Rudikabana, jailed for killing 3 young girls in Southport last summer. And this latest incident, less than a month after Manchester bomb plotter Hashim Abedi is said to have attacked guards with hot oil and homemade weapons at Durham's Frankland prison. But there's concern worse may be yet to come.
My greatest fear is, and we've already come really close to it at Frankland, is that one of my colleagues will be murdered on duty because of the lack of protection and because senior leaders are not proactive enough and keep appeasing prisoners.
After that attack, the Justice Secretary announced a snap review into the use of body armour by prison staff, as well as a trial of tasers. And there have been calls for violent inmates not to have access to items like kettles. But former prison governor Tom Wheatley says that's not the answer.
If we take a knee-jerk approach to this, we stand a chance of it being counterproductive, of getting it wrong, of actually increasing frustration, of increasing levels of violence.
Attempts to reduce violence are not helped by overcrowding and a shortage of staff. Rudikabana is alleged to have used a kettle in his cell to boil the water before hurling it through the hatch in the door. The officer was taken to hospital and released later without needing further treatment, but the outcome might have been very different. And this latest incident has only highlighted once more the risks prison staff face every time they come to work. The prison service has made it clear violence will not be tolerated. But last year, 10,605 members of prison staff were assaulted, up 15% on 2023. And nearly 3 times the figure a decade earlier. The officer burnt with boiling water is due to return to work next week, but it's hardly surprising when staff can't be convinced to keep coming back. Emma Birchley, Sky News, South East London.
Trade talks between key officials from the United States and China took place in Switzerland today and will continue again tomorrow. It comes as Donald Trump has hinted that he will ease trade tariffs on China to 80%. Here's what the US president had to say before those talks got underway.
I want China to do great. You know, I'm very friendly with President Xi. I have great respect for him and for China, but we can't continue to allow them to do what they did. I think we're going to come back with a fair deal for both China and us.
Have you given Besant a number of how low you're willing to go?
Yeah, I have.
Are you willing to share that number?
No. 80%? But I put out a number today, 80%, so we'll see how that all works out.
Well, the trade war with China is beginning to impact ports in California, with the number of vessels docking there dropping by 44%. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner has the story.
When you think of LA skylines, you don't normally think of this. But just south of the city, the celebrity of the shipping world. This is the busiest port in the Western Hemisphere. Around 60% of the cargo is from China. But Trump's tariffs are already biting here.
For the month of May, we expect that we'll be down about 30% from where we were in May of 2024. What that translates into is fewer ships, fewer containers. It means fewer trucks that will be needed to transport those containers from the port terminal to the warehouses. It means fewer jobs.
Lorry drivers wait for their shipment, but work is already slowing.
I can't say I'm going to make it through the end of December, November if this continues.
Helen and her husband are both drivers and have seen their shifts slashed.
We're barely surviving, and the fact that we are not going to have any income coming in, you know, in my case, 2 incomes that are not going to come in, how are we going to survive?
Are you scared about what the next month holds?
I'm scared for the next 2 weeks, let me tell you, because next 2 weeks, I'm going to see where this is going.
Presumably, a lot of these truckers voted for Donald Trump.
What the funny part is, people are now becoming ashamed to even say it. They voted for him because there's that stigma like, what were you thinking?
This port handles $300 billion worth of cargo every year. Items like clothes, toys, electrical products, car parts pass through here. But what happens in this port doesn't stay in this port. The impact of Trump's tariffs are about to be felt across this country. Downtown LA's Toy District is a lively strip of importers and wholesalers. Here is Trump's trade policy in action. In this party supplies shop, the shelves would usually be full.
These empty spaces, we stopped import from China. So because of the tariffs is too high. Normally, we bring stuff for Christmas, September or October. But this year, nobody knows what happened. So we just keep watching right now, the tariffs.
As the impact of tariffs is being countered, trade officials from Washington and Beijing will meet this weekend in Switzerland. Pressure is growing on Trump and his team to do a deal with China and do it quickly. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Los Angeles.
Police have been given another week to question 4 Iranian men on suspicion of preparing a terrorist act. They were detained last Saturday alongside a 5th man who's now been released on conditional bail. Police haven't released specific details about the possible terrorist act, but said they would share those details with the public as soon as they could. Pope Leo XIV has made an unannounced visit to Rome's Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore to pay his respects to the late Pope Francis. Robert Francis Prevost from the US was elected as the new Pope on Thursday, just 2 days after conclave. It was his first trip outside the Vatican. He paid his respects at the tomb of Pope Francis, laying a white flower. Mexico is suing Google after it renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America on maps for users in the United States. It follows President Trump's signing of an executive order to rename the body of water on his first day in office in January. The Mexican president insists the US doesn't have the power to rename the whole of the Gulf, only the section surrounded by North America. Now, as the government pushes ahead with plans to reach net zero by 2050, 2 communities in England and Wales are mounting legal challenges against green energy infrastructure. Plans for power cables running across a popular tourist beach in North Devon and 60 miles of pylons in mid-Wales have led to court battles and heated debate. Our West of England correspondent Dan Whitehead reports.
Oh, are these all the placards? Yeah, so I've got probably in about 60 of them.
It is the eve of decision day after months of protest. Planners in North Devon are about to decide whether to allow miles of underground cables through Saunton Sands and the delicate landscape around it.
There will be part of the dunes over there that they have to dig under or through.
The cable will bring power from a new offshore wind farm 30 miles off the coast.
Essentially, we're not against the wind farm. We are pro-renewables as a group, but our concern is that it seems like they've probably just put a pin in a map and thought, oh, that's a nice long sandy beach, let's land there.
There have been more than 1,800 objections, with concerns about threats to wildlife and the impact on tourism.
It's illogical to tarnish an area that is pristine and a UNESCO biosphere for the sake of one cable bringing in 100 megawatts.
The developers want to go through irreplaceable habitat. Just think about that, it's irreplaceable habitat.
White Cross, behind the project, say the wind farm will power 135,000 homes and that they've adapted plans to minimise environmental and social impacts. But this isn't the only green energy project that's facing a legal battle. In mid-Wales, there's anger at plans for 60 miles of electricity pylons feeding energy from new onshore wind farms. The government's race to net zero has seen farmers here end up in court.
The current proposals will see the tips of the pylons over the brow of the hill here, and then they'll track up the valley.
Dyfan's one of hundreds opposing Green Gen Cymru's pylons, saying it'd be far better if they were put underground.
These cables could have been installed by now, to be honest. If they would have sort of worked with us 2 years ago as we offered, you know, every farm down this valley would have opened up and the cables would have been in place.
Green Gen Cymru told Sky News it will always look to reduce the visual impact of our projects where possible, but the fully undergrounding routes is not economically viable. Back in North Devon, and the locals are arriving in force.
Well, it's absolutely packed here at the rugby club. There's probably more than 100 people here, many wanting to have their say, all eagerly waiting to find out the decision.
I will ask for a show of hands for all in favour of the application, please.
After nearly 6 hours of debate, the plans for the cable are passed.
I take some comfort in the fact it wasn't unanimous. There was a very heated debate. We'll regroup, we'll have a look. We believe that we've probably got good grounds for a legal challenge on this.
These are just 2 protests. There are many more in other parts of the UK. The government says securing Britain's clean energy will require improving infrastructure. But on the front line, making net zero policy a reality is proving controversial. Dan Whitehead, Sky News.
Time now for your Saturday Sport. Here's Josh.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Dowling's idea about coaches is an interesting one. 42% of Premier League first-team coaches across the last 6 seasons have been English. 56% have been British. The Premier League are also committed to coach development, launching an elite coaching plan in 2020 with a clear philosophy: better coaches lead to better players. Through that, they've supported 480 coaches and coach developers over the last 5 years. Alongside that, there's the Professional Coaching Partnership, bringing together the Premier League, FA, EFL, League Managers Association and others to offer further support for coaches. The League Managers Association, which represents managers in our top 4 divisions, told us they run a significant number of qualifications and personal development services for English coaches, all of which are oversubscribed, they say. But they admit that the football industry in this country is competitive, volatile and short-term. They say increased foreign ownership of English clubs and the purchasing power of English football mean clubs can scour the globe, and that has narrowed opportunities for home-developed coaches. The LMA say that whilst all the football authorities are committed to improving the situation, it's the clubs who need to do more. They need to recognise the rich seam of talent they have on their doorstep and provide environments that allow domestic coaching to develop and flourish. One of the long-standing complaints by aspiring coaches in this country surrounds the FA courses. Too expensive, not enough places, too much prevalence given to former players. So what exactly are the qualifications that you need? Beginners start on the Introduction to Coaching Football. Around 28,000 people do this a year at a cost of £100. Next is the UEFA C licence. Between 5,500 and 6,000 places are available. That one costs £650. 750 places are available on the UEFA B licence. This costs £1,200. You can manage in League 1 and League 2 with this qualification. The UEFA A licence costs climb to £4,000. 120 places are available on that course, and Championship managers require that particular badge. And the highest qualification is the UEFA Pro licence. You need that to manage in the Premier League. UEFA set the number of places available at just 24 a season. It costs £13,700 to do.
That's a huge financial outlay for coaches, and the FA Pro licence course is twice the price compared with Spain and Italy, but it's significantly cheaper than courses in Germany, France and the Netherlands. When places are awarded on each course every season, it causes significant debate on social media. Simon Goody has his A licence, but he had to go to Spain to get his badge, and having coached Fernando Torres' son at Atletico Madrid, he now works as head coach of SD Compostela's under-19s team.
Spain for me really was something that I saw as an opportunity for me to progress with my coaching badges. I kind of got a bit stuck here in England. I'd done my B licence when I was 19. I'd applied a couple of times here in England. I'd applied in Wales, I'd applied in Scotland, and unfortunately never managed to get my A licence. I really love the Spanish methodology.
Dale! Vamos, Alex! Vamos!
How would you compare it to the process that you were trying to get through with the FA?
It was a lot easier, if I'm honest. Obviously, there was a number of challenges to that. I had to learn Spanish. I had to do a Spanish exam to be able to enrol on the course. In the years that I applied, there were normally about 3 cohorts of about 30 students. And as I understand it, speaking to different people, there were in between 700 and 800 applicants here in England for the A licence. So spending now 5 years abroad in Spain, I would definitely recommend that if you're a young coach trying to come through, that working abroad is a really great avenue to consider.
What more would you like to see the FA do in this country for young coaches to help them progress through the game?
Unfortunately, because of Brexit, it's now harder for coaches to get abroad. I think it would be great if the FA could try and find ways to create pathways in which coaches go and spend a year with a club in this country and do like a little bit of an internship. One option would be for the FA to really look to try to grow that and put on regional A licences, which we have in.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Josh, thank you very much. That was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we're going to take a first look at Sunday's front pages. It's time for the press preview. And tonight, I'm joined by the editor-in-chief of nationalworld.com, Nancy Fielder, and the broadcaster and financial analyst, Albie Ancona. And among the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of the Mail on Sunday, their headline, "Commit any crime and you're out. Migrants to be warned." Talking about that and more after the break.